So in 1291, the Crusader states in the Holy Land were brought to their knees as their last remaining major territory of Acre was brought under siege by the Mamluks, who were looking to wipe them off the face of the earth. For the last century, Christian rule in the Holy Land had slowly eroded due to Muslim conquest and petty infighting, and 2 years prior the county of Tripoli fell to the Mamluks, where they brutally sacked the city. However, no relief force from a Christian crusade was planned, as many Western lords had problems back home. However, a few hundred ill-disciplined soldiers were sent over from Italy towards Acre, and despite them being intended as a relief force, they would bring the downfall of Christian rule in the Holy Land, as they started causing riots by massacring many Muslim traders inside the city. When news reached the Sultan Kalawan in Cairo, he demanded that the perpetrators be handed over for justice. However, the Christian rulers declared that the murdered Muslims were responsible for their own deaths. At this point in 1290, the Kingdom of Jerusalem and Mamluks was 6 years into a 10 years peace treaty, and that was quickly thrown out the window as the Sultan now began mobilising a huge army to punish Acre. However, Kalawan died only a month later. He was succeeded by his son Khalil, who took up the mantle of slapping the Christians back to Europe and rocked up to Acre in early April with a force of what contemporaries number around 70,000 horsemen, 150,000 infantry and 100 siege engines. Even accounting for the hugely exaggerated numbers of the day, it was still a massive army which surrounded the city from coast to coast and heavily outnumbered the defenders, who stood around 15,000 soldiers, with 1,000 of them being the crack troops of the crusading orders of the Hospitallers, Templars and the Teutonic Knights. An offering of peace was sent to the Sultan before the siege began, which was of course rejected, as the city was now bombarded by the siege engines, with 2 huge catapults being called the Victorious and Furious, as the towers were undermined with brutal efficiency, with one rumour saying 1,000 sappers were dedicated to each tower. Acre was defended by double-lined walls with numerous towers along the way, as well as a magnificent ditch in front of the outer wall, and it also hadn't been blockaded by sea, so it could still receive supplies, and at one point reinforcements of 700 men led by Henry II of Cyprus. Keeping control of the seaward side of the city was crucial, as the sea is the biggest ditch of them all, and as the old medieval saying goes, you make ditches, you get bitches. The city gates remained open but heavily defended, allowing the Crusaders to lead assaults outside the city. However, most were unsuccessful due to the overwhelming numbers of the besiegers. However, on one occasion, 300 Templars led an assault against over 1,000 Muslims, where they came back victorious with trophies and supplies. When Henry II of Cyprus arrived in early May, his assessment of the defence was that the city was no longer tenable due to the outer walls and many towers being collapsed from the sappers, as well as morale being through the floor, with an evacuation of the citizens being underway. Another set of peace talks in the name of saving the local citizens were rejected, as the Crusaders refused to surrender and Khalil refused to lift the siege, as a stone from a Crusader catapult landed next to the Sultan's tent, greatly angering him, and he ordered a full-out assault on May the 18th. The sounds of trumpets and drums signalled the assault in the morning as arrows filled the sky and men, women and children burned alive from Greek fire, as those in command of ships made a small fortune extorting the riches of the city so they could evacuate them, and if you couldn't pay, you were either enslaved or killed. The remaining soldiers and citizens fell back to this tiny fortress here, where they would give their last stand, which was essentially a last stand of the Crusader states, as in one small skirmish they killed 400 cavalry as they opened the gates to let the women and children out, but the cavalry stormed in first, so they trapped them in and then brutally massacred them. Further negotiations didn't get far, as on the 28th of May, sappers collapsed their walls and their resistance soon crumbled, with every soldier massacred and women and children enslaved. With Acre taken, the last few remaining towns and cities quickly surrendered to the Mamluks, marking the end of the wars for the Holy Land.